the lunchtime, we talked about the energy transition and what it meant for South Africa and Africa. In the next discussion, we talk about the fourth industrial revolution and what it means for Africa and South Africa, the region, etc. But I think what's also important is talking about the customer of the future. There have been several reflections shared this morning and perspectives shared this morning around demand, electricity demand, how the choices around electricity are changing, the general energy choices are changing, and the question about who the customer of the future is becomes a very relevant one. So to facilitate this panel, I now hand you over to Wendy Poulton. Wendy Poulton is the General Manager of Strategy at Eskom. She's also the Secretariat of the South African Brics Energy and Green Economy Working Group. She has over 30 years of experience primarily in the energy sector in sustainable development, R&D and strategy, and she holds an MSc and diplomas in strategy and innovation management. So to facilitate this afternoon's discussion and introduce the panelists to you, I hand over to Wendy.
Thank you very much, Kieran, and good afternoon, everybody. We are joined by a very male panel, but I'll let you guys off the hook this afternoon, and we're very privileged to have them. I think they're all very experienced in their particular fields. And as Kieran said, we're going to talk about the fourth industrial revolution and the energy transition in the context of Africa. Just to introduce everybody, I'll start off with Raven Mabahia, who is the General Manager for Information Management at Aberdare Cables. He has experience in the chemicals, petrochemicals, manufacturing sectors, and more recently in ERP solutions. Raven has a BSc in chemical engineering. Then we have Shamal, who's from Deloitte. He is the leader of the power and utility sector for Deloitte Africa, covering all aspects of professional advisory services. And he's also a leader in the Deloitte strategy and operations team, and is an internationally recognized expert in this area. Jamal has got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in industrial engineering. We then have Professor Babu Sena Paul, who is from the University of Johannesburg. He has served as the head of the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering Technology at UJ from 2015, and he's currently serving as the director of the Institute for Intelligent Systems at the University of Johannesburg. And then last but not least, we have Georg Becker from PwC. And Georg is an associate director with PwC, and he leads the power and utilities consulting practice for PwC in Southern Africa. He's got a number of years' experience in the electricity industry and has advised clients all over the world with a focus on energy markets, utility business model transformation, and renewable energy deals. And he's got a master in industrial engineering. So to kick off the topic, I thought I would just give a little bit of context around just talking about the energy transition and what it means for different people in different countries. I think if you look at what are the drivers of the energy transition, they're very different depending on where you come from. And in Africa in particular, we're looking at, it's very fundamentally, our energy sector is very fundamentally different to other parts of the world, in that demand is increasing in many parts of Africa because we have a low level of electrification and we are still promoting economic growth in energy-intensive industries. We also have a huge resource of energy resources in Africa, which is different to countries like Japan, who import all of their energy resources into the country. And I think the questions that we're going to explore are going to relate to the readiness of Africa to exploit the opportunity of the energy transition in the fourth industrial revolution. It really is an opportunity. And I extracted some information from the World Economics Forum's report that they published earlier this year on countries' readiness for the energy transition. And they classify 4 different categories of country: leading countries, leapfrog countries, emerging countries, and countries with potential challenges. And of interest, the ones that I picked out of their report, China, India, and Kenya are leapfrog countries. The highest African country in the index is Morocco, at 47 out of 114. And the next African one is Kenya at 71, with all the other African countries that were surveyed following. So it's within this context to say, given that readiness, and the survey looked at a whole lot of different things, including the current energy mix, the policy of the country, the skills level of the country, the R&D level of the country. And so it's clear that Africa has a big challenge, but it's also clear that we have a wonderful opportunity. And so that's really going to be what we're going to discuss this afternoon. And so to kick that off, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to just make some introductory comments. And Georg, we'll start with.
Thank you, Wendy, and good afternoon, everyone. I think the energy transition or the development of new technology has made a big change in the way we think about approaching the electrification gap in Africa. It is not the approach anymore of all or nothing. Our historical approach was either you connected to the traditional utility grid, or you had no access to electricity, or either very expensive diesel electricity. And I think that has changed due to development of solar and due to development of battery storage. And it's not a surprise that Kenya is one of these leading countries in leapfrogging technology, because many of the successful countries that have companies that have worked in Africa on off-grid electrification, for example, working in East Africa. And I think there are three key elements that are important when we look at why are these countries successful and why are companies successful. The first thing is they have a strong customer focus. And I think we in the industry look always like electricity, like generation, transmission, and distribution. But actually, the customer doesn't want electricity. The customer wants products and services. You want light, you want cooling, you want ironing, you want TV, you want communication. That you need electricity for that is a different story. But the very successful companies looking into electrification looked into the customer needs. And the second and third point are they're leveraging the new technologies like the combination of solar and battery and digital, mobile payment systems, and also remote monitoring of those systems to get a diagnostic fairly quick when something is going to break. And I think that is something very, very positive one could learn from the East African market.
Thank you. Being from the academics, maybe. Hello, yeah. Being from the academics, maybe I can talk a bit controversial, so it's not an issue. The main question that is coming in the fourth industrial revolution is that why do we embrace fourth industrial revolution? That needs to be understood. And another thing is that why did fourth industrial revolution come in? Nothing big did happen in last 10, 15, 20 years. Nothing. Means if you see first industrial revolution, there was a big thing that was happening. Second industrial revolution also there was. Third industrial revolution in 1947, transistor came in. So in the last 15, 20 years, nothing big has happened. The only thing that has happened is data has grown. Means data is currently growing at a rate of 40% per year. And another thing that has happened is that the capability of processing data at a low cost, because of the use of data lakes from Amazon, Google, and all this, so this has increased. So that is why fourth industrial revolution, because most of the algorithms that you will see are already 30, 40, 50 years old that are being used today. So that is why big data came into picture and all those. I'll come to the energy part also. Now, if we don't embrace fourth industrial revolution, life is going on smooth. What is the problem? The problem is, if we study a bit of history, the first industrial revolution, we were basically spectators. And what did it lead to? It led to the steam engine coming from England to Durban. It took 60 years. The second industrial revolution, we were spectators. There are reasons for it. What did it lead to? The commercial flight coming from US, it was launched. It was launched in Johannesburg after 60 years. Third industrial revolution, it took 10 years for computer to come to South Africa. It took about 8 to 9 years. Now we cannot think of a single moment without internet. It took 9 years for internet to come to Stellenbosch. So that is why if we don't embrace the fourth industrial revolution, and if we don't empower our people, then there is a problem. And another problem is we need to manage. Please ask me when I need to stop. Yeah, because this is the problem with professors. Yeah. Now another problem is we need to foresee certain things, because first industrial revolution has seen the Luddite protest, the people going and breaking down the weaving steam-powered weaving mills. Second industrial revolution, similarly, the Ford factory was required to be guarded by police so that production could go on. Third, most of us have seen the third industrial revolution. There was a huge protest. People were thinking that a computer can do everything. But in 1970s, we never thought of a job like a computer programmer, an IT specialist, a network. Most of us are of that age group over here. So, now also, if we don't embrace and if we don't prepare ourselves for the fourth industrial revolution, we will be seeing, to a certain extent, protests of that type. We need to prepare ourselves. At the same time, have a futuristic view and have an idea that how we need to upskill, reskill, and remodel our education sector and other sectors also, so that we are ready when the thing, and we should be contributors. Because if you look into, just one moment, if you look into these are some of the things that makes us think. The top 20 tech companies values about $5.5 trillion. Where are the top 20 tech companies located? 75% in US, 25% in China. So that means that technology is totally governed by, to a certain extent, to a certain extent USA and China. Now, if you look, most of the biggest tech companies came up as projects. Facebook came up as a project. Google came up as a project. Why can't those projects come up in Africa? So that there is a shift of this $5.5 trillion to a certain extent to Africa. So these are certain things that we need to think. So I rest over here.